Avodah, prayer, which of course mirrors what we used to do in the temple, but and Gmilut Chasadim, acts of kindness. Anything missing? Is this enough to there's also a very famous uh not so much of a debate, but it's very well known that Rashi and Rambam, two of the most famous commentators on the Torah, have a bit of difference of opinion. Rashi says something to the effect of the world would have never have been created if it weren't for these three things. And Rambam, in his more scientific approach, says human existence can only be sustained by these three things. So not that those things really contradict each other, but as famous as this Mishnah is, those two comments are also very famous.
There were so many people, if I may, there were so many people in the assembly. Why did they choose the quotation from Shimon HaTzadik?
It's a very good question.
According to the book I have here by Aber Ben-El, it says Shimon served as the high priest for 40 years, and during his long term of office, many miracles occurred on a regular basis. Shimon was a relation of Ezra the scribe. No nepotism there, right? Because we talked about nepotism last time.
Something never changed.
It doesn't come into play. Yes, it does.
So I think it's also important to maybe discuss or point out that he was probably called tzaddik because he was an honest person, or seemingly honest person. And while we tend to think of the Anshe Knesset Hagdolah as this as this pure entity of holy people, let us not forget that we are dealing with a time period where the descent of human interaction was very rapid, and we lost our second temple, not because of our service to God or lack of service to God. We lost that temple because of the personal relationships and the lying and the cheating and the and the Anshe Knesset Hagdolah was no different. They had become a very corrupt society, and no doubt disbanded. So perhaps one of the answers, Elliot, could be Shimon HaTzadik. I mean, I'm assuming that he was called Tzaddik because he was honest, and maybe he was very well respected amongst his peers, and therefore merited to be quoted.
Okay, a long time, 40 years in those times.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, but I actually did not know that he was Kohen Gadol, but that's an added footnote. Great. Okay, number 3.
Oh, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So Chazan, Safaria has translated Gimlut Chasadim as acts of piety.
Ah.
But as you translated, and I'm just looking at it from Chabad here, it's deeds of kindness. Now, those are very separate things. Piety is very separate. Piety is, I think, is what you do for yourself, but acts of kindness is what you do for other people.
Then I would definitely keep by my translation, because I think that the first two items in this Mishnah, Torah and worship, is very individual. It's not saying have a lot of students, which is actually, I think, comes in the next Mishnah or in the 4th or 5th Mishnah. But this is like Al HaTorah, which to me really translates as sort of like a personal relationship to Torah. Avodah, again, a very personal relationship to, service. But Gmilut Chasadim, for me, anyways, is the one that includes other people. So, Chesed is usually translated as kindness. And through those acts of kindness, one achieves perhaps the level of piety, which I think is what the Mishnah here says, is that through these things, one becomes closer to Hashem.
So the first two have to do basically with Hashem, and the last one has to do with interaction with everybody else.
That's how I would see this.
That's how I see it. Yeah. Study, service, and then be kind to everybody. Aleph, Bet, and Gimel. So simple.
Any more comments?
No.
Mishnah number 3.
Oh, whipping right along.
Sorry, what?
I say whipping right along.
It's there is no end to the study of Torah, that's for sure. Antigonus ish socho kibel mishimon hatzadik. So Antigonus, which the name itself is quite indicative of external influences on Jewish society. From Socho, from this place called Socho, received from Shimon HaTzadik. And he said, Al tiyu kavadim hamishamshin et harav al menat lekabel pras. Don't be like the servants of the master that serve in order to receive a reward. However, hevu kavadim hamishamshin et harav shelo al menat lekabel pras, that serves the master not with no expectation of reward. Vihi mora shamayim alechem, and the fear, mora is fear, of shamayim, of the heavens, will be on you. So the reward is the learning itself. Don't be like, like my kids who pick up their clothes because they may get a cookie. But pick up the clothes because you have to pick up the clothes. And how I see this is, if you do it this way, then you will have the fear of heavens, upon you. That if there's no expectation of a pras, then you'll be that your relationship with the mitzvot will be that you will have the fear of heavens upon you.
This reminds me of the Shema. If you do everything properly, you're going to have proper rains, and you're going to have the sun, you're going to have good crops. But if you don't, everything bad is going to happen. So much for no reward. I mean, you're not going to get monetary reward, but it's supposed to be, if you do what I say, okay, heaven will be with you. If not, boy, too bad for you. That's how I read it. Well, some people just need an incentive to do something. It's not just, I'm going to pick up my clothes because it's the right thing to do. No, I'm going to pick up my clothes or else mommy's going to really let me have it. So whatever the reason is, okay, they picked up their clothes. Okay, and I guess as part of what they do, or they're going to be doing the rest of their lives, thinking, okay, when they're adults, if I don't pick up my clothes, my mommy's going to scream at me.
Right. Good morning, Gail. Do you hear us?
Yes.
Hi, good morning there. It's Adam Stotland.
Oh, jeez.
So what I find interesting in this Mishnah is it's telling you not to don't be like the servants that do something to receive a pras. But then how does the Mishnah end? It ends by giving you the pras, by saying, and if you do it, then you'll have the fear of heavens upon you, which is almost like saying, this is going to be your reward for not expecting a reward. So the Mishnah seems to contradict itself, which I find very funny,
I think
although,
it's just human nature. As human nature, you do something. Why are you doing it? Like volunteers, they're not getting paid for doing volunteering.
right,
So what is the reward for volunteering? The reward is making it a better place.
right.
That's it.
But there's a difference between a volunteer and a slave, though. It's an interesting, or a servant. It's a very different, and I think some of the, yeah, there's a difference. And in some of the translations, they use the word slave as opposed to servant. So a slave has no choice, right? And servants don't necessarily have a choice either, right? But a volunteer has the choice. So it's interesting. Translation is an interpretation, right?
For sure. And I think it's always best to go to the literal word, right? Avadim, just like in the second Mishnah we just read, avodah is work, So I think that the Mishnah is actually being exact with that word, and it's saying, don't be like a worker that only works for the salary or works for the prize, right? Don't descend to that level, right? Torah isn't on that level. Torah is on the level where you should be like running to get it, not because of a pras, but Torah is the pras. I'm also very curious why, there's so many adjectives and there's so many descriptions of Shamayim and Hashem and Judaism and Torah. Why fear? Why the fear of heavens? I have a very good friend that actually just moved to Israel, Jason Rosenblatt, and years and like 15 years ago, we were talking about issues facing Jews today, and how come people don't go to shul more often? How come people don't celebrate Shabbat more, and blah blah blah? And his comment was, "There's not enough fear of God." Right? Not that people don't find the happiness in it or the connection, but a very sort of not cold, but blunt statement. There's not enough yirat shamayim is exactly what he said. There's not enough fear of heavens, and I was very taken with his comment. I think that there is a lot of truth to that. Certainly not. But why would the Mishnah use the term fear here?
Doesn't it depend how you define it? Because doesn't it also mean like the awe, like to be in awe? Like yira is, I thought, meant more to be in awe than actual to be afraid, which is pachad. So I think it also is how you look at it.
Mm-hmm.
Because being afraid, like shaking in your boots, is not the same thing as being in awe. Like it's so awesome that it's a different type of fear. Like you're in awe of something, which might be what they're trying to get at here.
Right. Interesting.
Elliot is muted.
You're on mute.
Mhm.
Sorry. I have three separate translations of Pirkei Avot, and one of them says awe of heaven. The
Awe.
other two say awe, A-W-E. The other two say fear of heaven. Very well brought up. Shirley, very good.
It wasn't me. It was Tammy.
For me, the word yira, yes, it has a different feeling than pachad, but there's still an element of fear in it. It's so amazing and so unbelievably awesome. It makes me unsure of myself, and that and that's sort of where fear comes from. Perhaps is that uncertainty that you don't quite know what's happening here. But certainly it's not pachad. That's for sure.
Okay, so there's no direct consequence of not going to shul. There's no direct consequence of not celebrating Shabbat. I mean, if you don't do it, all right, the next day is Sunday.
Right. So maybe saying that if you approach Torah and Avodah and right, because don't forget that these two Mishnas seem to be linked, right? Because Antigonus received from Shimon HaTzadik. So there's no coincidence why these two follow each other. And don't forget the first Mishnah, right? Moshe Kibel Torah Misinai. So we're following this sort of pattern of Kabbalah, and so he was a disciple of Shimon HaTzadik. So perhaps it's saying that don't do these three things because you're going to get a reward. Do them not like you're going to get a reward, and then you'll see that it'll open up this yirah for you, that you'll find that Hashem is this awesome, or that that it's this awesomeness, not because you're thinking about a pras.
Hello.
Yeah.
I'm Israeli, so I speak Hebrew more. I think the word Mora Shamayim Alechem, it's more not fear, but reverence. It's like the acceptance, not fear, but Yirat Shamayim is not fear. It's reverence for the sky. So you should get it. You should do the job in order to have reverence or Shechina on you.
Beautiful. אז אולי נדבר בעברית קצת.
למה לא?
למה לא?
כולם מדברים עברית? אני לא חושבת.
I think on certain levels.
Okay.
Number 4. Wow, we're gonna do 4. We're gonna do 3 Mishnas this morning. Beautiful. יוסף בן יועזר איש צרדה ויוסף בן יוחנן איש ירושלים קיבלו מהם. So קיבלו. יוסי בן יועזר צרדה אומר, יהי ביתך בית ועד החכמים, והווה מתאבק באפר רגליהם, והווה שותה וצמא את דבריהם. So Yossi ben Yoezer of a place Tzreda, and his pal Yossi ben Yochanan from Yerushalayim, Kiblu Mehem. So again, the same language. Received what? Received the oral Torah. And Yossi ben Yoezer used to say, Yihi veitcha beit va'ad lachachamim. Let your house be a house of meeting for the wise. Vehevei mitabek bafar raglehem. And you should be sitting at the dust of their feet. Right? Vehevei shoteh v'tzama, and drink their words betzama, with thirst. So stressing the importance of learning, I think, is what this Mishnah is about. And your house should be open to Chachamim, and you should be literally sitting at the dust of their feet, drinking their words.
I think it also shows a sign of respect that sitting at the dust of your feet is like you're below them in the sense that they're wiser than you and you're learning from them.
So I'm going to read a commentary from this book that I received. I did a leadership development program through Federation years ago. And upon completion, we were each given this sort of newer version of Pirkei Avot, edited and translated by Leonard Kravitz and Kerry Olitsky. And on this Mishnah, Yossi ben Yoezer and Yossi ben Yochanan. Yossi was probably a shortened form of the name Yosef. The two Yossis are the first in the series of Zugot, of pairs of scholars, who headed the Sanhedrin for about 150 years until the beginning of the Common Era. The Sanhedrin was the central authority in Palestine during the Roman period. While it had political, religious, and judicial functions, it originated before the destruction of the temple and existed until the Patriarchate was abolished in 425 CE. Yossi ben Yoezer was the Nasi of the Sanhedrin, so he was the head of the Sanhedrin. Yossi ben Yochanan was the Av Beitin. He was the head of the courts. It is not clear what the functional difference between these two roles, right? So you have the Av Beitin and the Nasi of the Sanhedrin. I would say I would guess that the Av Beitin really was in terms of acts of just the Beitin, of just the courts, and the Sanhedrin was probably more general, that encompassed the courts, but maybe also temple service and sort of ritual life. And if there needed to be some type of ruling from a court, then they would go to the Beitin. Other comments on this Mishnah, Mishnah Tzreda, the town from where Yossi ben Yoezer came, is mentioned in the Book of Kings. Let your house be a meeting place. Rambam and Bartonoro suggest that having your house be a meeting place means that the scholars themselves will look at your house as the perfect place for study and discussion. So it's not just saying open your house to it, but create the type of house that the scholars want to come to, right? That's like you're only having chachamim to your house to teach if your house is a place that they want to come teach. So that's a nice added depth to that Mishnah. Sit humbly at their feet, literally be covered by the dust of their feet. Rashi understands the phrase metaphorically. Serve them. Bartonoro takes the phrase more literally, walk after them. He explains that by walking after them, you will be covered by their dust. Bartonoro further explains that in schools of old, a teacher sat on a bench while the students sat on the ground at their feet. Right? So there's a literal, literally you're sitting at the dust of their feet, and Rashi explains that you're walking in their footsteps. Any further comments?
I find it interesting that one of the first things you said was that they were a pair, the two Yossis. They were a pair, and And it just reminds me of the way that they study Talmud in the yeshiva in pairs.
Yeah, this could have been the first chavruta, right? That's the sort of yeshiva style of studying where you and a friend, right? Your chaver, learn together, and this has been going on for millennia. This could have been the first modern day chavruta. Elliot, you're on mute. I can see your lips moving, but if you're no, okay.
No, I'm just talking to myself. It makes sense. It makes sense. Like I love it. It's so logical.
Right.
I can see the evolution coming along.
Right. All right. Well, this is a good place to leave off because if you glance at the next Mishnah, there's some interesting interesting subject matter which we will leave more time for next week because I'm sure it's bound to spark some discussion. All right, everyone. Have a wonderful day and a wonderful week.
Thank you very much.
Asher is going through some tefillah in his Zoom session at 9:30.
Who's that?
I thank Toda Rabba. Unfortunately, I had to get up and down, but in the middle, I got out of it what I could.
Have a
What
lovely day.
Did you say there's another?
Bye, everybody. Be well.
You said there's another learning?
Yeah, Asher does tefillah at 9:30 Monday mornings.
Is that the daven with that? Learn how you think you can daven?
Yeah.
On which Zoom is that?
He has his own link.
Oh. Okay, I'll look it up. It was a pleasure listening to you, Mr. Stotland.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you,
And
Chazan.
I'll try to join you next week again.
Anytime.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you, Chazan. Bye.
Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Shavua tov.
What's up?